Hello, and thanks for joining the session. Today we're going to keep working on our bot. I'm going to pull up the code that we've been working on so far in a second, but first, I kind of have this weird list of things that we need to do. The public chat is actually pretty much working at this point. There's still a few bugs in it in a couple of places, but it seems to be all right. Right now, we're currently sorting just on time, but I think we need to sort on ID as well. The idea being that if a bunch of people post content at the same time, for example, let's say we go to an older episode here. If I go here, let's say a bunch of people post content at this point in time. So right now it says 000. Then it might not actually always sort them the same way every time. So I do want to revisit our sort and see if we can do something more useful here. I'd also, at least for myself, like to receive notifications if people post messages to older sessions. So if they have a specific question, I can go and try to respond to it. Eventually, maybe we'll have other people be able to get those notifications as well. But at least for now, I definitely want me to be able to do that. Another big thing is right now, for the code for our sessions page, we have all of the templates outside next to our web component. So I did a little bit of offline research to see if I could figure out a better way to do that. So I think we're going to work on that today so we can bring that inside our web component, which will make the web component easier to actually move around and deploy in other places if we need to. Even if we don't do that, at least having the content and the styles and the way that the component works and looks will be closer together. I don't really like the fact that we have this little bit of JavaScript that doesn't really do much. Like it could just have been just plain old JavaScript at this point, rather than being a proper first-class web component. I'd also like to show time in the chat in some sort of digital format. So if we look at, see my countdown, let's go to, oh, we're not going to be able to look at the countdown because we're live. Here, what I'd like to be able to do is say, change this value to show in like this sort of format. So this would mean that this was 5 seconds before the start of the broadcast, and then we'd be able to move on from there. So I want to have this show something more interesting. It's possible for previously recorded episodes, we'd want to do the actual time and date, but I don't think so. I think since we're talking within a finite scope of what a chat represents, that we could do relative to the actual start of the episode. So those are kind of a big list of things that we want to do. Eventually, I want to be able to pop the chat out so that you could pop this out and have its own window, like if you want to move it to a second screen or something like that. But that's probably going to be maybe a session all on its own, so I don't think we'll get there. So the main things that we're going to work on today is probably the templates in JavaScript, and then see how many of these other things we can actually get to. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into the JavaScript. I did a little bit of playing around with this already. Let's look for create template. I created a little function that would create a template element, set the inner HTML, and then return the content. Now, I think we could probably accomplish this same sort of thing using divs. And when I looked up what the use cases are for the template tag, it was kind of sketchy as to what, when you would use one versus the other. The main thing that I see the use case for HTML templates is anytime you want to be able to write this into the raw markup. That is rarely the case for what we're working on now. So I don't think templates are maybe the best, at least not the way that they're intended to be used. I don't think it's the best use case for them. But the other option here would be to create divs. And then let's see, what would we do? Here, we'd have to do something like this. So we do the same exact thing, I think. So the two options are There we go. To either create an HTML template, set the HTML inside it, and then return the content, or create a div, get the first child, which would be our content, and then clone that first child. I think that this actually looks cleaner, so this might actually be a good use case for doing a template. I don't know under the hood if it actually makes any difference performance-wise or anything like that, but this actually looks clean to me and seems like it makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and keep running with this until I find out otherwise. One of the main things that I wanted to figure out was how I could still do this building templates within the JavaScript file and still get the proper text highlighting for the HTML. I also wanted to make sure that I could get code intel so that I could pick my Tailwind styles. So MV2, and it all comes in here. So I was pretty excited to find that out. I don't know if it's just because this is using the template literals. If I look up JavaScript literals, I don't know if it's just because we're using that format here. So the thing I was going to do today is switch it back to just a normal string and see if I lose that code intel. Then we'd know if that was the case or not. Let's see here. Oops, there we go. Well, something here, enclosed literal string. I wonder if there's a single quote somewhere in here. No, there's not. All right, so it doesn't like this. Let's do double quotes. Yeah, so it doesn't like this at all, but if we do this as a string literal using the backticks, it seems to work just fine. And at least in the case of PHP Storm, everything seems to hook up just great. So I'm excited about that. So we did this with the session chat message template. We have the messages container. This one was already kind of weird. So what I'd like to do now, messages container, is start bringing these templates in. So let's see, messages container. This one was kind of dirty, mostly because this first child bit was getting empty white space. So this is going to hopefully clear this up quite a bit. So this messages container, we'll do create template, and then paste what we had before. So we no longer need these IDs, which is another nice thing. So I can get rid of that. It also means that we don't have to have just one root element, but at least for now, I think that's going to be fine if we do. All right, so create template. All right, and I don't even know if we need, no, we do. So this actually appends the messages container to itself, but we do need to be able to reference this externally because this is where we add messages. So let's reload and see what we have here. We don't have anything showing up. So I think that's a problem. I'm going to try going to, what is this? No. I'm going to try and go to one of the older sessions. Let's do the offline stuff for a bit first. So we're going to go to this one where I know we have content. Okay, so something about what we're doing here is not working in this case. So messages container, we should be getting this object. But are we? Oh, I think we need to do the clone. Code true. So all we get back is the content. I think here, if we look for where we're using this .session message template, timeline constructor, message template. Yeah, so we actually need to clone the content. So that's probably what the problem is. Okay, did not work. Astrocasts. See if we can get a little more info about this. So it's a document fragment. All right, I think this is doing that weird thing again. So first child clone node. So I think as soon as we call this append child, message container goes to nothing, I think. So let's try that. Okay, cannot call length of undefined. All right. I'm not going to append the child and see if messages container actually contains information then. It's still a document fragment. It's got 4 messages in it. And if I append it, what happens? So if I append it, yeah, so this is where the document fragment is now empty. All right, so how do I do this? How do I do this? Create template, clone node true. First node, first child. Yeah, okay, so let's see if I can figure out what's going on here. So content in this case is a document fragment. So if I clone that, I'm cloning the document fragment. Let's see here. Let's do root. Hold on. Guys. I didn't think I'd get stuck on this today. All right, so can't figure out why why this behaves differently. So this is getting the template, get the content, get the first child, clone node. First child. This could be the same sort of thing, where the first child is actually this white space. Let's do get. All right, so elements by tag name. Let's get div, and let's get the first one. Let's see if that works. No. Get elements by tag name. It's not a function. This query selector. Okay, there we go. That was way more complicated than I had thought it would be. I want to see what happens if I do another div in here. I want to see if it breaks. Nope. All right, cool. All right, so the problem that I ran into this one other time, and the issue is that if you have a document fragment and you append child, document, oh, I think it's here. Yeah, if the given child is a document fragment, the entire contents of the document fragment are moved into the child. So even though this looks like the content should just be this document here, what we're actually getting is a document fragment. So when we do append child with this container, this messages container ends up with a document fragment that has no children. So since we keep referencing this container, which we assume to just be this div element here, we keep putting more stuff into there, but it's empty. Or the one that we're dealing with isn't actually the div element that was appended originally. It's bit me a couple of times now to the point where I really should get this on my own. I wonder if this means that there's potentially a better way for me to be doing this. And this could actually be why it would make sense to use a div instead. Let's see what happens here if we try that. Because it's possible that is just weird behavior. This would, I think, require us to create element. So if we do a div, we need to figure out how to get the first item out, which is sort of what we're doing here. Let's do template dot query selector any element. I want query selector all. Selectors. Take it. Let's see here. So since I'm building this on my own, I think I can say that it has to have a root div. I don't think I have much choice, actually. So let's see how this works. So message is probably going to break for its own purposes due to the fact that it's going to be assuming it can call got a house full of kids today. Let's reload. Pen child on node. All right, so let's see here. So this is already, we can get rid of this. Pen child should then work. Oh, it all worked. Interesting. All right, so I think this session started out with a assumption, and we've shown the assumption doesn't work quite as expected. It looks like, at least for the way that I expect things to work, HTML templates are not the way to go. Because usually what I'm expecting for this template is to, well, let me verify that. So if I have, so this is one that might be a little weird. My expectation is that the templates all have exactly one root node. I guess that's true except for these. but I could wrap them if I need to, but I'm not even sure how these are going to work, to be honest. All right. Let's call this good then. Let's move on. We'll just assume that for any of the templates that we need to create this way, we're going to create them the way that we have been. So we have create template. Okay, so looking at this now, I don't actually see a lot of templates, which makes me feel silly for spending time on this now. Create template, old. Let's get rid of this. This is the container. I think one thing we will do is probably move the chat input stuff into here. Right now it's not. All right, I think I'm going to call this episode early. I'm a little distracted right now, so I think tomorrow we'll try this again. Thanks, everyone. Bye.